Welcome to the Gabrielle Lauder Show, a podcast created for the new and aspiring entrepreneur who's navigating the messy middle part of their entrepreneurial journey. I'm your host, Gabrielle. I'm a niche expert and a sales coach who helps coaches like you find your niche and sell in a way that's authentic to you so that you can have a thriving business. I'll be inviting entrepreneurs from all walks of life onto these episodes to share their story of how they went from an aspiring entrepreneur to a CEO and all the messy parts they navigated in between so that you do not feel alone on this journey. Sit back, relax, and stay a while because you are more than welcome here. Hello, Danielle, and welcome to the show. I am so excited for this one. Everyone listening, this is my former client and dear friend, Danielle, and she is such a badass. I cannot wait for you guys to learn about her story. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be on your podcast. I've been listening to it for forever, and I'm excited to be a guest.
I feel like this is a long time coming. Like we should have done this a lot sooner, but I feel like it's also perfect with all the wonderful things that you have going on, which we're going to be like chatting about, all these wonderful resources that you have and opportunities for women. And the good news is a lot of those women listen to my podcast. So I think this is going to be a really good match for people listening. But of course, I want to really walk through your story. And I know that you have a very cool story. I'm ready to hear like the whole version of it. Of course, from working with you, I have heard bits and pieces of helping you kind of like formulate your story, but I'm really excited to hear the whole thing, right? And just like hear where you were to where you are now and dive through that journey and really like chat through your messy middle so that everyone listening can just feel more seen and heard, right? Like that's the purpose of all of this. Like owning your own business isn't easy. We all navigate our own things. And I'm really curious to hear what you navigated. So I'm going to pass this off to you. Like, what is your story? Share your story with us.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
A
So,
loaded question, right?
right. Well, and I think it's actually kind of perfect because I had spent a weekend away, disconnected. I say disconnected from work and just with my family and in nature this weekend, and I actually had just like all the emotions coming around my story and mapped out some of the things that I had gone through to share with other people of like just not limiting yourself. And so it's kind of top of mind actually, and so I'm excited. Okay, so let's start. I guess kind of where I kind of had the itch to be an entrepreneur really stemmed from my childhood. So my dad was a single dad of two daughters and was a very, very present parent and really cultivated his business to serve, in the way he wanted to show up for his family. And so I kind of learned from that, but, you always have to kind of experience your own bumps in the road, that messy middle that you say, to figure out, your path and how to kind of own that. And so I always kind of knew in the back of my mind that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but my life kind of took a shift on what I pictured it would be. Just to kind of give you guys a heads up, I was 17 years old when I found out I was going to be a mom. I was on winter break of my junior year of high school. And I had this idea of, graduating and going to college and hanging out with my friends and all these things. And life kind of took a different path. And so in that moment, I just had to grow up pretty fast. And I look back now and I'm like, wow, that's a pivotal moment that shaped me. That's a moment that I was terrified, to say the least. But I knew that like I was just going to make it happen. I was going to make her a proud mom. So there's been a lot of bumps in the road along there, within, at 17, I had found out I was going to be a mom. I was married about a month later, about a year later, divorced, became a single mom. Um, Oddly enough, was offered a job by my attorney the day my divorce was final. Worked in legal field for 7 years where I primarily did divorce. Again, a pivotal moment, right? Like I was closing a chapter and the same day was offered a new chapter. And so that was just weird to look at. Like when you look at some of the moments in your past and see how they kind of come together and unfold, it's just crazy. And so I had been a single mom for a few years and bought my first house at 21. Again, weird. It just felt like my whole life was kind of accelerated. but it was trying. Like, it's not all beautiful, right? But those are really beautiful moments that have come from it. But I started to date again, and I met my husband, Preston. We actually were friends growing up, had our own lives, had reconnected, 6 years later. And I fell in love and got married. And we were on the way back from our honeymoon, actually. And I was like, I don't want to go back. And he was like, just don't go back. And I was like, well, if only it was that easy, right? So I worked simultaneously for 2 years, and I built my first business. I had no degree, which was really something that I was like, who are you to go and create this business and do these things? Like, there was just a lot of limiting beliefs that came in, but I was just set. I was set to create a life that I really wanted. A year before I got married, I had lost my sister, Morgan, in a car accident. She was 17, and she was a passenger that her friend was texting and driving. And so I'd had like this pivotal moment of like, my sister's life ended at 17, but my life started at 17 when I became a mom. And so I was just like, life's too short to be in a job that doesn't fulfill you. I was capped at my income that I could make. And I knew I was meant for more. And so that support from my husband and the belief, I think, of just knowing that I wanted to take that leap opened up that door into creating my own business. But I learned real quickly while working both jobs and being a mom that time management was important. Boundaries were important. I ended up getting really sick. I lost my hair, like a lot of pieces of my hair. My vitamins deficiencies were intense. This is a lot to share with you guys, but in reality, I kind of hit what I would call rock bottom. I was just trying to be everything to everyone, and I was mattering like the bottom of the totem pole. Like, if I have time to take care of myself at the end of the day, great. But if not, then I'm taking care of my clients, I'm taking care of my full-time job, my family. And so I think as women we could probably relate to that, that we
Mhm.
just want to take care of everyone and make everyone survive, and like, we'll just take care of us if there's space to do that. And so that's kind of pivoted into what has become coaching business to help entrepreneurs. Being in the wedding and event industry, that's the business that I started in 2016. Um, I had seen, like, not only in myself trying to keep up with the demands and being physically exhausted, but I just saw that in all of my business partners, wedding planners, photographers, DJs, like, they're working insane hours. They're missing out on all this time with their families, and they're barely making anything, barely paying themselves. And it just wasn't sustainable. And so I kept saying, like, why are we doing this? Like, why are we all hustling this hard and not taking care of ourselves and like setting this standard? Like, why don't we just all rise together and start protecting our time, maybe really valuing the services, not undercutting each other? Like, I just started seeing these gaps. And so that's where the evolution of like coaching came from, is people kept coming to me and they're like, wait, why is Danielle not working every weekend? And like, why is she telling her clients she doesn't respond at, past this time? And how is she being able to do all these things and still take care of herself? And people kept coming to me and asking me these questions. And I was like, because I had no choice. I was literally sick. And I wanted to redefine the way that I lived my life and encourage others to do the same. And so that evolution has literally gone from getting paid to help people do this. So I had this space to taking way less events, but then using my event and design aspect to create retreats for women to escape this hustle and grind, prioritize themselves, and really define the way they see life. So my women's retreat is really about creating a life and business of intention, like, not everyone else's version of success. And so there's the unfolding. It's just kind of unfolded into life happening, looking for what's missing, and then filling the gap.
Oh my gosh, that was just like, because I've heard bits and pieces of that, of course, through like working with you, but hearing it all just play out from 17 to where you are now, like, I truly cannot imagine, right? Like being 17 years old, getting that positive pregnancy test and just saying, wow, like what now? And then navigating a divorce and all that by the time you're even like 20 years old.
Yeah.
Going
This,
from that to where you are now, that is just so bad. But Danielle, it is so badass. And I love how you highlighted that because, there's so many women like that out there who may be in their early 20s or their later teens who are in that situation, right? Maybe
right.
had a child young who maybe got married to the wrong person, navigating a divorce and thinks their life's over. And you're here saying like, no, your life's just beginning.
Well, and I
I
think
just
that's yeah, and I think I felt like casually skipped over my sister because it's still been um, a very
all that.
hard process, and so I don't think I really gave justice. But I look back at these pivotal moments. Like I would encourage those listening to do the same. Is like sometimes when we think things can't get worse or they can't get better, we get into like this heavy place, which I think is just a natural reaction to life. But when I went back and I looked at like, okay, I became a mom at 17 and I was in a marriage that wasn't healthy, but I stepped away. And when I stepped away, I was offered this job and this opportunity. At that point, I was literally knocking on people's doors to ask to clean their house with a toddler in a stroller, to offered a job as an office assistant and then paralegal and then office manager, and I worked at this firm. So like the day that my divorce was final and I thought it can't get worse than this. I'm the single mom with this baby and no real job. I was offered a job where I was literally like, "You want me? Like you want me to work for you?" And I feel like so many times we discredit ourselves and what we're really capable of. And then I looked back at these other moments, like purchasing my home was insane.
Mhm.
I bought a house next door to my dad, and I grew up playing in this house, and it was 5 bedrooms, and it was just me and Leah. And this lady was like, "Hey, I just want you to build a family and memories here." And so she worked with me to be able to purchase the home. And I thought I was crazy. And then just a few years later, I meet my husband who has 2 kids, and I have a full house. And
Right.
I look back at like losing my sister. That that was one of the hardest years of my life. Um, I mean, honestly, it's still hard today. This is actually the month of her anniversary. And I look back at that and supporting my dad, being next door to him, and in that capacity, but I've used it to fuel me. She would want me to
Yeah.
make the most of my life. And so
Yeah.
I just thought life is too short to really not be happy and excited. And so it's just neat to look at the unfolding of these really scary moments and how they actually become beautiful if you just stick with it. You just stay persistent.
Thank you so much for sharing that because, like, yeah, thank you so much for sharing that and just navigating that journey and, like, so much messy there, right? But so much beautiful at the same time. And I love your perspective on all of that, which I'm sure it's taken a lot to get there, but your perspective on navigating those, 5 to 7 years is very beautiful. And I swear that's why people just gravitate towards you now. Like, and I tell you that all the time is like, I just feel like you are such a connector, right? Like, and I haven't even met you in person yet. I will be soon, everyone listening. But I just feel like you have that energy that just like brings people in, and you're such a connector like that. And I think your perspective on everything is beautiful. And I think what you have done with your story, with where you are now, is even more beautiful, right? Like you have been able to just pull yourself up by the bootstraps and go from, Leah in a stroller knocking on doors to getting that office position to where you are now. You're literally running retreats for women.
Yes, yeah,
And
it's insane.
it's like and especially too like what you said of, how you were a wedding planner, right?
Yes,
Being in that industry and just seeing how like cutthroat it is, for lack of a better phrase, because we're getting married in September. Most of you guys listening know that. And I can't imagine. So anyways, going from that of just like wanting to create an escape for women
yeah.
and making
I
that come
needed
to
it.
life.
I needed for I don't know. It just felt like it was my calling, um,
Right.
and I didn't know it terrified me. Almost everything that I have taken over, just like if we were just to reverse over the last couple of years, we're going into our third retreat. I launched my coaching business in January of last year. If I just look at like the way that life has accelerated and the doors that keep opening because I'm just willing to listen to what people are needing has been insane. And getting past that fear, like it's real. It exists, and like there's so many times like we don't feel qualified. Oh, I don't have a degree. Who would want to learn from me?
Mhm.
That was one of my breakthrough moments. Is when I finally just said, "That's ridiculous. A degree does not define me." And but it's taken a lot of intentional work from like coaches and support, and like the retreat community is really just as much of an a uplifter for me as a host, just being in the energy with these women and these speakers. And so, yeah, I hope that kind of elaborates on what I was trying to convey about
Yeah,
just being
absolutely.
consistent.
Absolutely. So I want to talk about that because I wrote that down and I circled it here. How did you navigate, right? Because you said you had this like wild imposter syndrome because you didn't have a degree, right? And so you were kind of like, well, who am I to be doing this? For the people listening who may not have a degree, which is perfectly okay. And I say this all the time when I begin hiring for my business. That's literally the last thing I won't even look at it. I won't even ask for it because I do not give a shit if people have a degree or not. When it comes to, I don't care. Like that, I feel like so often people mistake like that certification for intelligence and it's not, right? Like, what are your values? How are you as a person? How do you build relationships? How do you communicate? Your degree doesn't tell me any of that, right?
Right.
In my opinion. And I know there's many people who would disagree with that, but how did you navigate that? How did you navigate not having the degree, having that imposter syndrome and continuously moving forward to scale your business?
Well, it's been a process for sure. Like even like I said, the day she offered me that job, I was like, "Me? Like you want me?" And then
Mhm.
like being asked to speak, being a speaker has been just an evolution over the last year or two. And I was like, my first retreat, I didn't even speak. And when I got back the surveys, they were like, "We thought we were going to hear from you." And I was like, "I honestly, Gabby, I did not think that people wanted to hear me speak." And so a lot of times we get in our own way. And so I would say, like, for me, navigating it has been self awareness of like, is this true or is this like a belief that's limiting you? And then doing the work. Reach Retreat year one, Diana, she comes each year to speak. She's just incredible. She wanted us to, in our breakout session, to really be vulnerable and like share one of our limiting beliefs that we truly knew was like the gatekeeper to our success, and that was
Mhm.
mine. And I was really embarrassed to share it even as a host. I was like, oh my gosh, like
Mhm.
I think also like being a young mom and not, being able to go to college, like that picture that I had always kind of loomed over me, but I had to be realistic and say I went to college. I did it with a toddler in diapers. I worked on my papers until 2 a.m. and I was going
Mhm.
for a business degree. And then what happened was I built this business and I was like, wait, I'm already doing this. Like, it's almost like you just needed that badge of honor. And so, like, releasing that need to say, bam, did another thing. Like, as an achiever, we can get in our way. Like, I'm an achiever. So, to me, it's
Mhm.
like, check, like I checked that
Yeah.
box. And so,
Yeah.
I would say, like, first self-awareness, like the journaling around it too, it has been really big, is like writing out how I'm feeling and why I'm holding myself back, but then returning to my why. I'm being called to do this, and it's always bigger. Like,
Yeah.
I usually don't know how I'm going to get to Z, but I always
Mhm.
have figured it out in the past. And I just say, I know you're spiritual. I'm very
Mhm.
spiritual. And so I really listen to my gut a lot.
Yeah.
And I've learned over the years, because I kept using the word persistent, which is so weird because I don't use that word a lot. But because of that and not giving up and like just giving it a shot, I've seen it prevail so many times that it's like
Mhm.
history, is to teach us. Like, we're supposed to
Yeah.
learn from it. And I'm like, if I have this gut feeling and the times I've listened to it versus not,
Yeah.
yeah, I go back and I'm
Yeah.
like, it is here for a reason. There's this nagging feeling I can't ignore. And so that's kind of how I've navigated it, is being honest and speaking up about my fears with those I
Mhm.
trust, and then deciding like, if I don't do this thing, then what? But if I
Yeah.
try and I succeed, the impact that I feel like is going to happen from it is always so much more significant than my fear.
Mhm. Right. It's like asking yourself, well, what if this goes right? Right? Because we're so often like, okay, this is going to go wrong. I'm going to get judged. I'm going to be embarrassed. Somebody's going to ask me for my credentials, like all of that. What if they don't?
Right.
What if it's the best thing for your business? What if it's the best thing for you? What if it's the best thing for your community and the impact? And it's like, I love how you said it's getting out of your own way because the fears that we have, right? Like people may not have thought twice about not having a degree, right? Or having a degree or asking you for the degree or any of that. But I think it is so bold of you to share that because like it's not easy to get on a podcast, right? That's going to be blasted out to so many people and on YouTube and sit here and say what your fear is. But it's like, I hope everyone listening really, feels empowered by that, where it's like, okay, take your fear, right? And let it be known. I shared one on Instagram the other day. I said, I am actually terrified to spend money on myself. I do not like I'm not good at it. I don't enjoy it. But if Eric asked to do something, if my sister or something, I'd run and go do it. And it's like we all have these things to work through to become the best versions of ourselves. But what I love that you said is like you just always listen to your gut.
Yeah.
You
And
always lean on your intuition.
And I think to myself, people come to me for advice. Like that's what I do is like help
Yeah.
advise them. I challenge them by asking them questions. And sometimes like the best information is already inside of you. It's just extracting
Mhm.
it. And so then I always say, like, I hear my clients, oh, I'm nervous about this. And I'm like, what's the worst case? You ask and it's a no. You ask and it's a yes. But if you don't ask, it's still a no. Like, so
Right.
whenever we like take our own advice, a lot of times we know what we're supposed to do. That gut is guiding us. We're just not
Mhm.
going all in and trusting it. And I think we also have to be okay. And that comes with the self awareness and like the inner work of like if it doesn't work out.
Right.
Because if anything, I look back, like my marriage didn't work out, but
Mhm.
it's so much more beautiful now. I lost
Right.
my sister, but it changed my life. You look
Right.
back at those things that, and like the ugly parts are actually gifts if you just look for it.
Mhm. Oh, that's so beautiful, especially for what you've navigated in your life, loss and, just becoming a mom so young and navigating all of that. And for you to have that perspective, I think is so beautiful. And so we were talking a bit about your why before that. So I want to hear first for everyone listening, obviously we've like touched on the fact that Danielle is a retreat host. Why don't you walk the listeners through what Reach Retreat is and then why you created it? Because something I've heard in my community is that people would love to start retreats. And I am like probably the worst person to talk to about that because I can't even plan a freaking birthday party without like losing my head. So walk us through like what is Reach Retreat and then why did you start it?
Okay. So, um, what is Reach Retreat? Well, Reach Retreat has evolved into a luxury retreat for female entrepreneurs. It was my desire to just spoil the hell out of women, like because we just don't get that. Like I told you a little bit in my story, is I'd hit rock bottom. I also knew that like when I my experience being in the wedding industry is I didn't have like a lot of women clapping for me. I was a new person in the
Mhm.
industry. I am very creative. I'm very driven. And I didn't really feel like I had the support that I needed in my business. I think many people starting businesses feel that way. Like, what is SEO? How to build a website? Like, I'm supposed to register with Google and do like all of these things were just really overwhelming. And I didn't feel that I had a really supportive community. And so I started looking at all of these things going on with entrepreneurs in general, like wanting to start a business, wanting to grow, wanting to evolve, wanting to step into their purpose, but they were meeting all these roadblocks. And so I had actually attended a conference in July of 2019, and it was like a building full of 8,600 women. And my husband drove me down about 2, 3 hours from our home. I went completely by myself to the conference because it was women only. And I get in line, and this woman was like, "Hey, who are you here with?" And I was like, "Oh, no one." They're like, "Oh, well, you're not alone anymore." And I remember, like in that moment, I was like, "Whoa," because I had grown up with a single dad, and I was very tomboy. I didn't have, the girlfriends I did have been my friends since like fifth grade, and they just loved me for being, Danny, the tomboy, the athlete. And so I'd always found like challenging too, like being in women relationships. And so I just started seeing like all these pieces coming together. I'm building this business. I'm not seeing a lot of support. I go to this conference and these women are like already open and they don't even know who I am. And I could feel the energy in that room. And I was like, this is so neat. But then I would go back to my hotel room at the end of the night by myself. And I
Mhm.
just felt like if I can get this much from this like little intimate experience, well, it's not intimate, but like these really short interactions with these women, like what could happen if I really like use my design skills, this gap that I'm seeing in businesses and women taking care of themselves, and actually put it in an intimate container where we actually get to work on where we are at. Like at a conference, you pick out pieces, right? But
Right.
my goal was with Reach Retreat was to meet you where you're at. What are you as a business owner struggling with and actually get help with where you're at? Because I felt alone as an entrepreneur and I wanted to call bullshit on it. Like we
Yeah.
deserve to have the right support and to be surrounded and to have women who genuinely clap for each other. And so that's kind of where Reach Your Trade evolved. It was like just seeing that women needed this space, they needed to experience it. And so I think that I answered your question. I hope.
You did. Absolutely you did. And it's like, I love what you said too, is like, you took a little bit of a different stance where it's like, I'm crafting it around these women
Right.
versus, hey, here's the agenda, come join. Where it's like, no, this is really crafted with you in mind. And it's an intimate group, right? Like it's a small group.
Yes. So, like this year's retreat, where I get to meet you, is
Yay.
10 attendees to 6 speakers. And so it's like we have these speakers, and I like to call them leaders because that's really what you guys are. But it's like putting them in this space to be like, hey, you're dealing with this in your business. Let's sit down and talk about it. And letting the girls and the speakers engage with each other before we get there to actually tailor what we're talking about to these attendees and them to feel really heard. Um, yeah, so that's my approach was just like we need you to feel that you are seen and that your struggles matter, and this is how we're going to fix it.
And that's it right there. Like there has been a huge trend shift that I have seen in the online space because Danielle's a coach as well, a coach, a speaker, all of the wonderful things. And you know, that's what I've seen in the space is it was so much of, hey, here's what worked for me. Come buy it. And then you can get my secret sauce of how what got me to $3 billion, right?
Right.
Where there's been this big shift, and for everyone listening, especially if you're just starting in the space or you're trying to figure it all out, like definitely keep this in mind. Shift it to the uniqueness of your person, right? Like, what do they need in this moment? And the fact that it's 10 attendees to 6 leaders, speakers, experts, let's say, the amount of hands onness is unreal. Like, that's not heard of in the retreat space. I feel like it's like you said, it was 86,000 women or something like
Yeah,
that, or 8,600.
8,600 women.
Oh, I was like, 86,000. That's a lot of
And
estrogen.
I did take a lot from that experience. And I was like, but what I have seen in the past of these reach retreaters is, surveying like when they get ready to leave and listening to their feedback and saying, okay, so this is the next step that you're wanting to take in your life and your business. And then meeting them there. So, like, we have 3-time returning reach retreaters because it evolves with you. Reach retreat is
Yeah,
not like this little box of like, you come and we're going to hit on this, this, and this, and you're going to be done. It's like,
right.
what do you need? And let's help you. And the areas of topics like this year was like tax strategy and aligned
Mm.
cells and really the healing aspect. Because Reach Retreat focuses on life and business too. And I think that's what makes it different. I mean, I know that it is because
Yeah.
a lot of times you go to this business retreat or you go to this healing retreat. Instead, it's like this combination. And so it's like, how do you define success? What does it feel like to step into an empowered identity? And it has a little bit of woo, which I know you can appreciate this year too, which is super exciting.
I love Woo. I love me some Woo. You guys all know that. But it's listening to your person and then delivering. And so for everyone listening, like that's the name of the game is listen to your people and deliver and just deliver that white glove service, right? Like I already know just from working with you is you go above and beyond for your people. And the more you operate with integrity, the more you go above and beyond, like the more people pick up on that and want it, right? Like they want to be in on that. And it's very much just asking, hey, what do you need versus hey, here's what you're gonna get.
Yeah, and I think that even with like when you're looking for a coach or you're looking for a mentor, I think it's important that you look for that. Like, are they willing to help you in the unique way that you want to sell? For instance, like that's one of the things that gravitated me towards you was one, the value that you brought. Like I know people just going to look at our retreat leaders and speakers, like just looking at their Instagrams, there's going to be no denying the value that they're going to get, because that's what I look for, is who is someone out there that's giving value, who's being genuine, who's leading by what they know has worked, but also like you met me where I was at. Danielle, what's working for you? What's not working for you? Where do you need support? And I feel like sometimes we get caught up in this, oh, well, I make six figures or whatever. You should come
Mhm.
follow me and I'll show you my proven method and strategy. And I'm not saying that people don't have strategies that probably work, but like in the
Right.
longevity of it, we really need to know what makes us thrive as business owners and individuals.
Right, because exactly, it's all about like what works for you, right? Because I can sit here all day and say, "Hey, this is what works for me. This is what's gotten me here." But if that doesn't resonate with you, you're just gonna burn out. And like, I just love how this new shift is coming with all of that because it's so necessary. But as Danielle alluded to, guys, I'm gonna be speaking at Reach Retreat. So, and honestly, like the more like we talk about Reach Retreat, the more I'm like, this value is freaking insane because I'm going to be there for it's a 4 day period, right?
So we're 5 days, 4 nights.
5 days. Yes. For that amount of time, so 10 women to 6 leaders, right? So it's me and 5 other awesome women. You get to sit with us like that entire time. So it's essentially like taking a coaching program and like squeezing it into 5 days. Like, and to be, I have never met any of my clients in person. And just the fact that these 10 women, like, and I've told Danielle, like, if I'm there, I'm all in. You get to sit with me, and I'm assuming the other leaders as well, like, that whole time, and we can work on your stuff. We can do strategy sessions. We can do all of that. So to get that value in itself, right? That's like working one on one with me and like the in person aspect as well. That is a small sliver of the pie that you're getting in all of this. And I just want to emphasize that value because the more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, this is an incredible value. And like, so I'm going to leave in the show notes below the website to Reach Retreat. So if any of the women here are feeling called towards this, you feel gravitated towards Danielle in this, you really want to just learn more, it's there. Check it out, and then you can apply. And Danielle, I will obviously let you kind of run through all of this in the end, but apply and check it out. Or, feel free to send me a message too. I can get you in contact with Danielle. Happy to give my feedback if I think you're going to be a good fit or not. But like, I cannot wait to be in that room with all of these people.
I'm excited. I'm excited for them. I mean, I've worked with you for 6 months, and I'm like, you
Yeah.
guys know, like, I know my investment with you is well worth it. But I'm like, you guys are getting so just with her coming. I'm like, you guys have no idea. And so that is one thing that I did want to hit on too was you
Yeah,
had asked
please.
me previously. I know I'm backtracking just a little, but you had
That's
asked
good.
me like how I navigated like this imposter syndrome and not having
Mm.
that degree. And it's because I also invested in myself in the ways that I felt were related to where I wanted to go. So
Oh.
working with, perfecting my packaging, I had to have a coach to help me with my money story. I had to have someone,
Mhm.
I not had to, but chose to go to conferences like we talked about earlier, like those self-development conferences. I've gone to money conferences, I've attended webinars and master classes, and I've done all of these other things to help really position myself to be like, this is what I'm really good at and this is what I'm knowledgeable in. And that I think also adds to that imposter syndrome because you are investing, you're learning and you're growing. It just may not be in the way of a textbook, right?
Oh my God. Shout it from the rooftops. It's not it's going against the grain. It's going left when everybody else goes right. And I love how you emphasize that because I am just like even Eric, like me and Eric, I think the reason why we mesh so much is like neither of us are by the book people.
Right.
Like I'm a little bit more of like a rule follower than he is, but like we're just not like by the book. And I think that that's so important in your business. And I love how you said too, like rewriting your money story, having somebody help you with that. Because something that my coach says that I just love so much is the relationship with you that you have with money is going to affect your business.
Absolutely.
Because if you're not in, like, it is so important to invest in yourself. And if you told me this at the start of my business, I'd be like, oh, I already bought like the course, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
The power of community, the power of collaboration, the power of networking, the power of being in the room with these people, proximity is
Oh
power.
yeah.
It makes all the difference. Because, like, you can run your whole business off of referrals, but you need to have a network of people to refer, right? Or
Right.
who are to refer you. And it's like,
And
that's so
genuine,
much of
genuine people, like
it. Right,
how the relationships that you build with like in these intimate spaces too is it's like you want to work with each other. I think that's
right.
the neat part too is like that's not the expectation when you get into these spaces, but you get to know people, you get to see that they are a person of integrity, you get to learn about their skills, but you also get to learn about their vulnerability. And like that
Mhm.
is what like you asking me about my story, I'm still like, oh, like it's still a lot to
Mhm.
put out there, but it's the reality that like they have gone through these things and these challenges and they're human too because sometimes like we see in the coaching spaces or different spaces um, that it's like perfection, you know, do this, do that, do
Mhm.
this, I'm slaying it, I'm making all this money, and it's like but really behind the scenes like I have no clients, right? Like it's just
Right,
being honest and people seeing that part of you. And I think like owning our money story and showing that we're investing in ourselves too also makes it possible for our clients. And like align sales. How are we expecting people to invest in our products and our businesses if we're not even willing to invest in ourselves? And
right.
it can be scary, but I can tell you for me and my personality type, like when I have something tied to it, like money, for instance, or
Yeah,
emotion or something, I show up in a totally different way, so much more
right.
expansive because I'm like, oh, I have something tied to that. Like that could have been this for my daughter, but I invested this. Now it's time to really show her like that ROI, right?
Right, and you bet on yourself, and I'm
Oh,
sure it's a whole other level once you're a mother, right? Once you're a parent, it it takes it to a whole new level, and a part too that I wanna emphasize as well, and just highlight is how you said that, you've been to retreats that have been healing focused, and then business focused, right? Two separate ones. And you're combining the two. And for you guys listening, you know how in I am on healing in your business because that threw me for a freaking loop. I swear no one talks about it. And the fact that you are owning that, the fact that you're bringing two pieces together where it's going to be strategic, right? We are going to talk about sales. I'm going to be there talking about aligned sales, selling in a way that feels good to you. And then there's also going to be like breathwork sessions and things
mhm.
like that, right? Like more on the healing side of things. And just being able to bring the two together, being surrounded by like-minded women, like I'm so freaking excited. And I hope people listening, like I know there's a few seats left, so if you want to join, please, please, please check out the link below. But Danielle, I have two questions left for you.
Okay.
So the first question is, what is something that you wish you could go back and tell yourself at the start of your business?
Well, I feel like it's going to be ironic, is what we just said, but
Yeah.
it's going to be invest sooner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Getting help. You know, I wouldn't say just spending money, but just like getting help, asking for it.
Right.
I think
It's
that's
hard.
what I would say. And can I do two?
You sure can. Yes, absolutely.
That caught me off guard, and I'm like processing it. Tell myself sooner.
Yeah.
I would say it's okay to say no.
Mm.
You know, I'm about boundaries.
Mhm.
And I
Oh,
would say
yeah.
yes to like every single opportunity that came to me, and they weren't even in alignment. They were like a distraction. And so I would say that. I would say like ask for help sooner and be okay with saying no. Like not every opportunity is the right opportunity or a good opportunity. And so I just wish I would have given myself that permission because I just felt like I was running myself ragged to people please and not really staying
Mhm.
focused on like my bigger goal.
Oh, I love that so much. And like listening to your gut too. I feel like you talked a lot about that. And like if you do get an opportunity, maybe like just like listen to what your gut says. Like, is this for you or is like the universe throwing this your way as a little distraction to see if you're really on your A game?
And your gut usually tells you to say no. And that's what I was saying earlier. I would say yes, knowing that I should say no. And then I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Like,
you dread it.
yes, like, why did I say that? And then you realize too, like, sometimes I would say yes, knowing I should say no. And then, like, another opportunity would come to me. And I couldn't say yes to it because I committed to something that wasn't even what I really wanted to do. But because I'm, you know, loyal, I was like, oh no,
Yeah.
it's okay. I'll just stick with this. But that does that. Like, I feel like sometimes the universe will test us, right? Like, you say you want this, but you keep saying yes to this other thing. And it's not an easy thing to swallow sometimes.
100%. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then the last question is, how can people get in touch with you? Where can they find you? Obviously, we've been talking about Reach Retreat. So, like I said, I'm going to put everything in the show notes below. But what steps can people take to work with you and get in touch?
Absolutely. So DanielleThrockmorton.com has Reach Retreat on it. You can also go to reach-retreat.com. So they're all kind of linked to the same place, but it has like the coaching for those who are wanting to break the bullshit cycle of entrepreneurship and want that extra support. I love being able to do that for people. I have like VIP days where I get to help work in your business. Those are super fun. But right now, I feel like the community aspect of the retreat is really super important to emphasize, because then you kind of get like a whole tribe of badass women to support you as you are expanding. A lot of times people will leave Reach Retreat, and like the reason I named it Reach is because you're reaching that next level, like you're reaching for this higher version of yourself. And so that's what I would say is connect me on the website. But I love hanging out on Instagram like every day. I'm a stories person. I love like showing behind the scenes. So again, it's just Danielle Throckmorton on Instagram. But that's where I like to make best friends. That's where I like to get to know about y'all's lives and what you're up to. And so Instagram is always fun to hang out with you there.
Awesome. So, guys, below I'm going to put Reach Retreat website, Danielle's website, and then a link to her Instagram. So you can just click over and go follow her. Thank you so much, Danielle. Just your vulnerability, sharing your story, which obviously, like you said, it's tough to share. But the fact that you came on here and did it for the sake of everyone listening and adding value to their lives, I appreciate so much. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you for letting me.
Of course. Did you enjoy today's episode? If so, I would be super appreciative if you left a review and a rating and shared this with a friend so that I can continue to bring you value every single week. I'll see you next time.